Hey guys, we are back and we are now in day 13 of our commitment to 5 days of live streaming at 10 p.m. PST. And I've already explained in previous live streams why we are doing it like that, why we're counting 5 days, but then reporting that we're doing 13 days. So it's 5 days plus 8 bonus days. And it's almost like a glass half empty, glass half full approach, right? So instead of committing to 30 days, you shrink your commitment to something that is difficult but still within reach. And then once you get there, everything else is just extra, it's just bonus, right? And yeah, last night, what I talked about was um, the difference between us and 4-year-olds. I think I spent about 2 nights on this. So in our, I'm gonna bring up my let's bring up my mind map. There you go. Great. And so we said I talked about my yellow helicopter story about how I took a Lego set that was, like all yellow and gray. It was made for construction, making like cranes and um, and trucks, and I used it to create a helicopter with a motor instead of turning the wheels. I thought, oh well, a propeller is just a wheel turned this way, right? Um, and that's the first time I'd ever touched a set of Legos, and I made my own propeller, right? So this is an example of being in pure creation, where you are just rocking and rolling. Another word for it is jamming. Another word for it is being in flow. And the doing for us creates the knowing. And this is why I want you guys to go ahead and start doing things, taking action towards what you want to create in your life, whatever that is. Start doing actions, right? Start picking up the actions of the type of person. A question to ask yourself is, what would the man you want to do? Um, what action would the man that you want to be take? Right? Richard Grannon calls this supra states. The idea that you can take on a persona and like step into that persona like temporarily, right? And if you we connected it with method acting and Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson and Daniel Day Lewis. If you live in that character long enough, you can end up becoming that character. And even in some spiritual traditions, that idea that if you can act like something, that it's possible that you can actually stay like that, right? So you emulating people and adopting other people's behavior, right, until it becomes your own, until you own it, right? Okay. So we also talked about Dr. Manuel Smith, his book "When I Say No, I Feel Guilty," um, which is all about why we don't plainly state what we want. And we said that um, we learn that behavior as children. We learn to manipulate because all the adults around us get us to do things and get each other to do things by manipulating, and we get out of the sort of innate natural habit of just asking for things, right? So the book is all about how to avoid getting guilt tripped. It's a menu of verbal assertiveness tools, and if you haven't read that book, honestly, like um, it'll really give you the idea of what I mean by updating your toolkit, your toolkit, right? Um, a really good framework or a really good perspective. Check this out. Jordan Peterson, he said that you can think of self-esteem as just the ability to do something. And if you want more self-esteem, just pick up more skills and learn more things. Go out and ask ask people for help. Go take classes. Learn how to do things. I mean, he didn't talk about that part of it. I'm adding this. So if you want to increase in self-esteem, uh, go to the library. Go and learn a language. Go spend 10 minutes reading a book about French. Right. Um, learn anything. Learn how to work with wood. Work with metal. Learn how to build things. Learn how to fix things. Right. Especially older people, and I count myself as older now. If you ask us for help, especially mentorship or to teach you how to do something, older people really love that. And this is something we learned from Dale Carnegie, which is that people love to talk about their stuff. And if their stuff is auto mechanic or auto repair, talk to the auto mechanic about auto repair and ask him and tell him, hey, I would love to come and just hang out with you for a couple hours and just watch you work. Right. That's a free instant boost in self-esteem. Right. Okay. So that's a small thing for you all right there. Tonight I want to review the concept of everything is made up, and I want to apply it to my situation. So we're going to take or to my goal to continue live streaming and to expand this. Okay. So let's just make a new node very quickly, and we will name it later. But for now, we're just going to say that it is, you know, September 12th, right? 2023. Okay. So the concepts we're going to look at right now is, and we've already looked at this. Everything is made up. Okay. Everything's made up. And then um, I'm not sure what to call this, but I'm going to say that it's shifting gears. Um, V1, actually, a better way to say it, V1 sets us up for V2, um, like manual, like a stick shift. Stick shift, great. Like a stick shift. Let's zoom in so you guys can see. Okay, so we have our concepts, and there's one more, and this is related to that quote by W.H. Murray, right? It's about commitment. Is that spelled right? Somebody come in the comments and correct me. Oh, let's put up my banner. Let's see. I've actually been looking at Riverside FM to switch from StreamYard, which I'm using now. You see StreamYard up here, right? See StreamYard? I'm using StreamYard, but with Riverside FM, there's more AI tools, and I could potentially chop all of my videos up into little segments and pepper them all over social media. So I'm omnipresent, and you see me everywhere, right? All right. So W.H. Murray commitment. Let me actually find the actual quote because it's kind of important. The quote by W.H. Murray is, "Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves to all sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would come his way. I'm gonna just make a note. Events, incidents, meetings, material assistance, and I'm going to show you what's happened for me in the next in the past month. Okay, or in the past 2 3 weeks. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Great. So I began this commitment to do 5 days of live streaming. So what what has happened, and this just happened today, was a couple ideas. So one is I was talking to my friend Josh Boone. He has a podcast. He has about 30 episodes in the can. It's called the Josh Boone Show. And so what he did was he helped me improve my online my podcast profile, right? Because there's an entire page that I had missed filling out and not even paid attention to. So it turns out um, people weren't able to find my podcast through which they can request to be on, right? So now I'm going to start getting uh, requests for people to come onto my podcast and request for me to come on their podcast, and we can share, right? And we can trade, right? We can do one recording, and then that's two podcast episodes for the other person, and then for me, right? So I get to improve my podcast profile. So now I'm gonna start getting requests now, right? Because now I'm visible. Whereas I wasn't aware that I wasn't even visible before. So that's material assistance, but that only came because I did the commitment. Commitment is taking a step and having the floor could rise up to meet you. You don't see that there's a step there yet. So you're walking off a cliff, so to speak. Commitment is walking off a cliff, and you have faith that that the assistance will come. Okay, and so you take that step, just like in I think the third Indiana Jones movie, right, where he took a step off of across this chasm, and there's an invisible floor under him, and he took some sand and he threw it, and he saw that the sand skidded across, and so he could see that, oh, there's actually a floor, and he was able to walk across. But he wouldn't have discovered it if he had never taken that step. Make sense? So this is the same thing as what W.H. Murray is talking about. You have to figure out, or it helps to figure out, what that initial action is. What is that one action? And different people have different ways of arriving at these actions. That's outside of the scope of what I'm talking about now. But suffice to say, it was worth doing 2 weeks of live streaming, showing up as if people are watching, and delivering and being at full power, myself showing up at full power, whether or not anybody's actually watching. And turns out nobody was actually watching for the past 2 weeks, right? But think about 2 weeks into the future when I have my podcast out on Spotify, out on Amazon, out on Google Podcasts, out on Kindle, or out on Audible, or other places where podcasts live, right? And my efforts are now mirrored. So now efforts will will be matched. Will be matched. It's almost like a how you have matching gifts at work. If some companies have this thing called matching gifts, and that means that your employer matches a donation that you make to some charity that you choose If you do it through the company matches it. Very common. Okay. So now my efforts will be matched, and i.e., i.e., doubled, right? And anytime this kind of stuff happens, guys, you have to write it down. You have to keep a record, keep a track of it. So over time, you can look through your notebook and see how this thing that you have created and put into action has led to that thing that you want at the end. And so you can see the momentum building, and you can see incidents, meetings, and assistance and material assistance. Okay. All right. Put WH Murray here. WH Murray. Great. I.e., doubled. What's another thing that comes for that? Another thing that comes for that is that I no longer have to think about um, where am I going to go and get and find listeners and viewers and people to partner with, right? So this one meeting I had this morning with my friend Josh, I should put his name here actually, Josh Boone. And if you like this show, please go check out my friend's show. It's called The Josh Boone Show. It's available on Spotify and you find everywhere where you find fine podcasts. Okay, all right. My efforts will be matched, and now I have a inflow of guests, which helps me satisfy my goal um, that I started this commitment with in the first place, which is being in dialogue with as many people as possible. Right? The influx and the requests gets me that being in dialogue with as many people as possible. Another thing that happened, right? So anytime you work on something in one area, it can transmute and transfer to other areas. So the other thing that happened is incidents. In creating my podcast the description, i.e., in my profile, I now have a better profile. It enabled me to improve my LinkedIn profile, and the ability and the ability to focus and really look at it and say, this is how I need to write for LinkedIn. This is how I need to tweak it for my podcast, show, and this is how I need to tweak it for my podcast guest profile, right? Okay. Trying to think of what else happened that helped. The other thing that happened was I was in dialogue today. So I had two different meetings. I had one meeting with Josh and another with somebody I met in my coaching group named Steve Shaw, and he sells insurance, right? So you wouldn't think that I would get some insights from somebody who sells insurance for what I'm trying to do here, right? That's not true. So I actually got a lot of notes and some very crucial like clarifications as to how I can do this thing that I'm teaching you guys. How can I do it better? You see how that works? So it works like this, right? You do action A, and action A doesn't necessarily lead to action B, C in a linear way. Action A skips around because you're putting this out into the world. If you want to think of it as a vibration or mind waves or something like that, or something in the ether or some psychic energy that you put out, I actually don't care. we don't have to worry about the mechanics. All we have to know is that it works, right? So when you put things out into the world, things come back to you, right? So one of the big goals of this podcast was to practice that, was to I'm going to put things out into the world, and it actually doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter who's how many viewers, because what happens, guys, is that we get bogged down with the amount of viewers, the amount of likes, the amount of subs, and the amount of comments, right? But there's a time in the birth of something where there isn't anybody yet. It's like that movie Field of Dreams. Like, if you build it, they will come. The Kevin Costner's character is obsessed with baseball. He gets this intuition that he needs to build a baseball field in his cornfield, and all these um, historical baseball players from the past show up and play baseball. Right? It's strange, right? So I think it's one of those magical realism. Is that what you'd is that the genre that you'd put Field of Dreams in? Magical realism? No? Yes? Okay. Somebody come on comments and tell me, okay? All right. So the other thing that happened is I got to really look at, oh, and then going backwards, the working on the LinkedIn profile, working on the podcast description led to working on the LinkedIn profile, and then led to meeting um, Steve Shaw. Those are all people I had calls with today, right? So improve a LinkedIn profile, and then check this out. I got working on the profile when you condense it, and then you look at the title. So I've called this designed. I've called this what I've done so far designed, right? And I made a logo for it, right? Now, what if um, that's this? There's a better name. So I got ideas for more appropriate names, right? So ideas popped in my head for more appropriate names, names for my show, right? Cool. So all this came from my commitment, came from doing what W.H. Murray is talking about. A whole stream of incidents, a whole stream of events, issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would come his way. And that's how it's always been with any of my endeavors, my career change, working, trying to get married, trying to get hired at this place or that place, or moving from finishing college and moving into graphic design, or transitioning from graphic design into UX. All those I did on my own because I created them unconsciously, unconsciously created them, right? So what happens when we take hold of this power, like the infinity gauntlet, and we can snap our fingers? What's that snap? That snap is that initial action, right? That sets everything else into motion. Okay. All right. I actually didn't have much planned to talk about tonight. Um, and look what happened. I showed up, I hit um, go live, and actually had a lot to talk about. But what I'm going to work on, the other thing that came, the other incident, is I now have a checklist of of things to update, things to update um, in order, or a checklist, and goes back to my concept of get to the next checklist. Hold on, let's move this. Oh, here we go. Get to the next checklist. And I did that. I got to the next checklist. The next checklist is I identified that list, which is identify, let's say 20, 10. Identify 10 podcasts to which I would 10 podcasts I want to be on. Okay, I want to be on. I want to be on. So now I know which ones to share my profile with because I now have a profile. I have a profile because I had a meeting with my friend Josh, and there's a blind spot, right? And this goes back to the idea that you don't get there alone, right? You achieve anything you achieve, you achieve with the assistance of your intuition, of other people, of material, of your circumstances. Okay? Share with your profile. Share profile with them. Share profile with them. All right. All right. And so you'll see next week, I might have a completely different setup. Oh, and another thing. So another thing that happened was now that I did the show, I can have feedback about it. Now I can fix the show. So from both Josh and Steve, I got that the intro seems like it's just music. So what I can do is I can work on my my what do you call it? The screen when the video is not playing, right? So I think it's like a cover screen. So now I can play with cover screens now. So I'm at the point where I have where I have the actual podcast running, and that's going. I spun it up. Now it's running. Now I can go over here and start working on other things, almost like a DJ, right? You have to learn how to get that first record going before you can bother with the second record, right? So now I can create cover screens for each one. Then, and then, other thing I can think of is improving titling, because all my titles have been, committing to X amount of days of live streaming at 10 p.m. PST, right? So now I can improve my titling for each video. So what this means is making my stuff findable, making my videos findable, right? And I can just now I know I don't need the intro. I can have it at the end. I can just start. I can just start talking. I don't need any video with music or anything. I can just start, and that's enough. And I can do the cover screen later because people will just see that I'm sitting here talking as opposed to seeing ocean waves, right? All right. So making my videos findable, and what's the easiest way to do that? By the way, so here's a tip for you. What you do is you go to YouTube and you find other people's screens or other people's YouTube channels, and the most there's a graphic design style to making these um, video covers kind of almost intentionally ugly and like loud, right? So the easiest, the best guy to copy is to just go to Alex Hormozy, and I'm gonna paste in a screenshot here. Let's see, so you can kind of see how it works. Okay, let me find this videos. Here we go. So bear with me, guys. I'm gonna find. Here we go. So bear with me, guys. Hold on. Here we go. Here we go. So watch this. Screenshot. Click. Paste or copy, and then paste into here. Right. So why are we doing this again? We're doing this so that we have a container, a template, a target, and why we like um, constraints. Constraints. Why we like constraints is because it helps us find done faster. We have a defined standard for what done means. Otherwise, we can spin our wheels forever. In design, you could spin your wheels literally forever. You can. There is no such thing as the perfect or done design, right? You could improve design literally forever. It's an endless endeavor. So you have to have constraints and boxes around these things because we have limited time and we have limited energy. So now we have constraints, uh, helps us helps us find done, helps us define done. So our done is when it looks like an Alex Hormozy, when when it looks like an Alex Hormozy with with my particular taste, right, to it. I'm gonna have a different color palette, right, and different typefaces, but it's the same ideas. Make everything different and start there. So it helps us gives us a starting point. So it gives us a starting point. So this is almost like a working meeting where I'm making my to-do list, my next checklist, right? I'm doing that, but I'm also showing you my process so that again, this is like a workshop. This is a live, it's a talk show, but it's a workshop at the same time. It's a hybrid. I want you guys to do this. I want you go back to your project, whatever it is that is in your heart that you feel you have to get out into the world, and I want you to go here to do the same thing, to take these principles, right? So the principles we talked about today is everything is made up, right? And how that relates to us with everything is made up, it relates to the 4-year-old child concept, right? A 4-year-old child makes things up, and when we understand that everything else in the world is made up, that empowers us and that gives us the freedom to start making up things for ourselves and deciding and choosing how things are going to be for ourselves. Okay? All right. So that's an example of what's happened for me in um, in one day. So from Steve Shaw, the other thing I get. So Josh helped me with Matchmaker.fm. Another thing that helps is being open and honest with what you need help with, right? So he told me he gets like dozens of podcast requests a day, and I told him, hey, I don't get any. And so he said, well, let me show you my, looking over his shoulder, let me show you my profile, and here's how I have it set up. And I said, oh, I skipped a step. That's why I'm not getting any. No one's requesting to come onto my podcast. So very soon, guys, I may come on here with guests, right? And that's getting closer to what inspired me to do this in the first place, which is this radio show I used to listen to when I was in high school called Love Line. And you see how that works? I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't tell anybody that I'm doing it like Love Line. That's my template, right? But it's gonna turn out like that when I get my profile up and running. Okay. All right. So that's what we have now, and and we've been talking for half hour about WH about the practical example of what's going on in with my project. This is my project. This is my thing, right? And then I'm going to go shift into V2 and it becomes something else. So or first gear. So first gear, I'm showing up. I don't. I make up a name and I show up and I just start yapping. I just start talking, right? Make don't wait. Okay, I'm gonna. This is a related concept, right? It says don't wait until the iron is hot to strike. Rather, make the iron hot by striking. Okay? All right, guys. So I'm going to wrap this up. And again, please reach out to me. I'm going to put my LinkedIn up here. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, if you like this mind map, if you want to do a private mind mapping session with me, or any type of brainstorming, ideating session with me, or if you just want to vent or complain, right? And you can vent or complain to me about anything. I'm a good listener. Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna end the stream. This has been designed with Zaid Hisham doing or committing to 5 days of live streaming at 10 p.m. PST, and I'm on day 13. All right.